Welcome back to Open Exchange. Let's go to Dalian, which is in the People's Republic of China. It's the World Economic Forum, and the World Economic Forum, it says here, is committed to improving the state of the world. To find out if it's doing so is Samantha Loring, CNBC Africa's Samantha Loring. Sam, what is the theme of this current WEF round?
Well, thanks so much for that. Meeting the innovation imperative is, of course, the theme this time around. What is interesting is we're not talking about the global financial crisis. We're not talking about the world's slow recovery and debt. We're talking about the future very much at this World Economic Forum. And certainly China setting the tone yesterday. We had the Premier making an address right at the end of the day, talking about the fact that innovation is the policy which runs through every policy that guides China going forward from here on out. We know that China, when it comes to science and technology spend, when it comes to spend on innovation driving technologies, they're spending 2.5% of their GDP, that up from 1.6%, and that equating in around this 5-year plan to around $3 billion on innovation driving technologies. So that, of course, is at the heart and center of China's policy. And certainly we've got young global leaders, we've got businessmen from around the world, from across sectors, from the mining sector, from the healthcare space, from the pollution control sector, if you could call it that, talking around how innovation is going to shape the world in around 20, 30, 40 years' time, Lindsay.
And of course, innovation would be very important for the South African mining industry because of the talk of mechanisation, and innovation is going to be needed because we have such deep mines. Tell us about the South African delegation and the South African presence at this particular WEF, if you would, Sam.
Well, we of course have South African heavy hitters like Patrice Motsepe, who we continue to bump into in corridors in between discussions and debates that he's involved in. We've also got Zola Tsotsi, the chair of Eskom, who has been in heavy demand. He, of course, is talking around South Africa's energy situation and what South Africa can learn from China. We've seen Jay Naidu here. So we do have a few touch points from the South African contingent. It seems, though, that South Africa is underrepresented if you look at the likes of Russia. We certainly have a strong Russian contingent here. We see certainly a lot of players from the Asian economies making their voice known. And also Africa, I must point out that we've seen a lot of young global leaders from Mozambique. Eric Charas, who's an entrepreneur in Mozambique focused on affordable housing. We had Mozambique focused there around the role that they can play when it comes to reducing the cost of housing, and also an entrepreneur in the Kenyan space from New Energy talking about their solutions to energy. But South Africa, I suppose we do have the likes of Patrice Motsepe and Zola Tsotsi, some of the big names that we've seen here, and of course Miller Matola from Brand SA talking around the South African story that we'd like, an image we'd like to portray going forward. Those are some of the names that we've seen.
Yeah, I suppose there might be WEF fatigue. We've had the WEF in Cape Town, we've had Davos, now we've got China, and there's all sorts of other rounds to it as well. But the impression I get from binges like this is that on the surface we have one thing, but in the corridors, you mentioned you were bumping into Patrice Motsepe coming out of rooms and in corridors and things. Behind the scenes, that's where the real deals are done, and this is the real benefit of WEF, I think.
Exactly, and that's the same question we continue to ask people. Does it make sense to spend money on hosting a conference like this? If we're talking about spending money, China has spent a lot of money. Apart from all the rigmarole that goes to hosting an event, they in fact built the building that we're coming to you from for this event specifically. Around 2 weeks ago, it was a building site. Today, you wouldn't see a dust particle inside. So certainly has spent a lot of money on building and making sure that they can host an event of this scale. But talking to lots of the young global leaders, they're all talking to each other around how their innovation potentially could bring in investment from the Asian continent. And I'm talking about entrepreneurs across South Africa and Africa right now, talking about tying up and collaborating with other innovators and other people who've got money to spend, looking at potentially bringing technology to Africa, bringing technology to other parts of the world. So Lindsay, I definitely do think an event like this, apart from giving us the opportunity to hear their stories, certainly brings together business leaders from across the globe.
Samantha, thanks very much for that. Keep those expenses under control. That's Samantha Loring from CNBC Africa in Dalian in the People's Republic of China.